If you're feeling like getting out and switching up your routine, then going on a getaway might be for you. Getaways come with the Adventure Awaits expansion pack, and you can think of getaways as being a structured experience or multi-day event. They're also not to be confused with vacations, which are more like a general holiday whereby you spend a few days living on another lot. Getaways can be set up as a relaxing retreat or even a reality TV show. But while I think these are the best uses, there's heaps of flexibility in the kind of experience you can craft. And so know that the options are pretty endless. To start a getaway, you'll simply want to have your sim use their phone to plan a getaway. You'll also notice the planned fitness retreat, romantic competition, and outdoor kids camp options on your phone too. And know that these options are also all just getaways, only they've been pre-filled to simulate that type of experience. Should you use your phone to plan a getaway, then it will start immediately. But if you wish to plan one for a later date, then you'll want to instead plan it from your calendar, which lets you select a time in the future when it'll begin. Now there's 3 key parts to planning a getaway, and we'll start with the relatively simple General Information tab. Here you can choose a location where the event takes place, and notably the more expensive the lot, the more it'll cost to have a getaway there, with the daily and total costs appearing at the bottom. Importantly, if you host a getaway on your home lot that you own, then you'll actually earn money from your getaway, kind of as if you were hosting it for others. This being said, you'll only get a true indication of how much you earn from hosting a getaway once you lock in the amount of people attending a little bit later. Within this section, you can also choose the duration of a getaway, as well as the start time if it's planned via the calendar, as well as the end time. Plus, you can select whether or not the getaway reoccurs weekly. And should you select this, then the getaway will become rescheduled in your calendar for the following week once it ends. But now comes the more confusing part of planning a getaway, being setting up roles and a schedule for it. And this is done from the middle tab. The first thing you'll need to do is either select a schedule preset, which is a pre-made retreat setup, or create a new preset, which essentially means you'll create a new getaway experience from scratch. Because creating a getaway from scratch is pretty finicky, I'd suggest seeing if any presets fit with what you already wanted to do. If they do, then select that preset, and then you can just change it up a bit here and there to make the getaway match exactly what you envisioned. Now, so that we can get a good understanding of how everything works, let's create a new event and look over how to set one up as we make a dance camp. Firstly, when you select to create a new event, you'll be able to rename it to match whatever your getaway is about. And so I named my event or custom preset Dance Camp. Now the first thing we'll do is minimize the right hand side time slot so that we can focus on the roles to the left hand side. You can think of roles as being groups of people or sims that will bring your getaway experience to life. And you'll notice that your sim is already assigned to a custom role. Think of the getaway you're making and what groups of people you need to make it function. So my first role is a dance learner, or the people attending the camp to learn. I've decided I want 6 learners at a time, and so I've put the total sims in this category to 6. You can then assign specific sims who will take on that role in the getaway. However, you can also leave this blank whereby random sims will fill the spots. Next, we'll expand the details for that role. Role criteria specifies conditions sims need to meet in order to be able to fulfill that role. So I've decided that this is a dance camp for adults, and so I've chosen age as a category and selected young adults, and elders. As it stands, this criteria is just preferred rather than mandatory. But if you want to make it mandatory, then tick the Make Selected Criteria Required checkbox. Notably, mandatory criteria is shown to have a bold green border with a tick. Now let's look at the role's activities, which sets the default activities for sims in this role. I've added being friendly, dancing, and working out to keep dancing as a focus, but to also add a bit of variety in the day-to-day. Being honest, from my experience, activities placed here aren't super important though, as for the most part what sims do is determined by your schedule that we'll look at later. Finally, I've selected the role outfit, and in particular, I've chosen sims to wear outfits from the athletic category. You can alternatively pick an outfit style whereby you can choose dress codes and colors, or even customize a specific outfit for sims in that role. which brings you into Create a Sim, whereby you'll decide on the look you want. Finally, know that if you think you'll use this role in the future, then you can also save the role to your role library. This is mostly helpful for roles that you might use often across multiple different Getaway themes. Now you'll essentially want to identify all the roles you need to bring your Getaway to life and then create and customize those roles. I'd suggest searching in the role library to help speed this up. You can scroll through and see what there's already a preset for, and then select the 3 dots button. Then you can select the Add to Current Roles button to add that into your Getaway's roles. I use this process to add a chef and a staff member, and I then tweaked their role criteria and activities. For the chef, I removed the preference for them to be a celebrity, and additionally their activity to mentor others. This way they'd focus more on cooking and serving meals. Then for the staff member, I added fixing objects to their activities so that they'd keep things repaired on top of cleaning. I also made it so that the retreat would have 2 chefs and 2 staff members. Now if you need a role that there isn't a preset for, then you can also press the plus button under current roles to create new roles from scratch. I did exactly this and created a dance instructor. I decided to have 2 sims within the dance instructor role, that they needed to be adults and preferably have some dancing skill, and that their general activities would be dancing and mentoring. They'd also wear their athletic outfits. The final thing to do is ensure that your sim is assigned to the role you want them to have. And if you have specific sims that you want assigned to other roles, then assign them to those roles as well. With the roles now set up, let's turn our attention to the schedule on the right hand side of the interface, which I've pre-filled just a bit. This essentially lets you structure how a day will play out during your Getaway. One thing I will say is that pretty much every schedule you make will need fine-tuning, but thankfully you can edit schedules at any point, including while a Getaway is underway. So if sims aren't behaving how you envisioned, then you can tweak the schedule while the Getaway is going on to change up things so that they run better. Now setting up a schedule is done by creating time blocks that are categorized by their main activity. For example, eating, which sims will look to do during that period of time. Also know that each activity block needs to have a start time and must run for at least 3 hours. Once you've set up a block with a starting time and a main activity, you'll then want to add all the roles that are relevant to that activity to it. For example, if we look at dance camp, you might only want the dance instructor and dance learner roles to engage in a dancing activity block, but for the larger sleeping block at night, you'll likely want all the roles to engage in it. So the dance instructors, dance learners, chefs, and staff members. When roles are added to activity blocks, they'll start out with their default role activities that were set up when you created the role. However, you'll be able to change out the activities within each time block to match what you want your sims to do within that time block. Know that the specific activities you assign to sims roles during that time block will take preference over the main activity. Because of this, you might want to double up by also putting the main activity into the role activities as well if you want to make sure that the main activity will be done. For example, for a food break, even if the main activity is set to eating, I'd also suggest adding eating into various roles activities within that eating time block as well. Also know that you can customize outfits for each role within each time block as well. So that might all sound a bit confusing. And so let's go through a scheduling example with the dance camp that I've now fully set up. I set the first activity or headline item in my daily schedule to be eating, which starts at 6 AM. I then customize the standard role activities of the dance instructors and dance learners within this time frame to also include eating as well as making smoothies, while keeping being friendly for the dance learners. I also had staff members be included, but while I added eating to their activities, I otherwise kept their tasks of cleaning and repairing objects. I also included the chef role in this activity block, however I had their sole activity be to serve up dishes, while they'd still engage in the main time block activity of eating. Not including eating in their role activities meant that they'd prioritize cooking and serving dishes for others during this time, while having a bite to eat for themselves would be more of a secondary task. My next block was for the first dance class starting at 9 AM, and so the headline item or activity was to dance. I only included dance learners and dance instructors in this block, and while dance learners had dancing and being friendly as their role activities, dance instructors just had the mentoring activity. The idea here was that while the learners danced, the instructors would prioritize mentoring them where possible. However, if they were unable to, then they default back to the headline activity of dancing themselves. The next block starting at midday was another one to eat, kind of like a lunch break. This was pretty much a copy-paste of my first eating block from before, only I substituted out making smoothies with drinking coffee. There was another change here though, being that I added self-care into all of the role activities besides the chefs. Self-care is an important activity to include into any getaway schedule at some point, as it essentially lets a sim perform activities to boost their needs. Just be aware that it will mean that lots of sims simply go for naps. Following this activity block was another block to dance. This was essentially the afternoon dance class for the day, and I set this up as an exact copy of my earlier dance class. Afterwards, I had an activity block called Free Time, which had the headline activity of free time, meaning sims could do whatever they wanted to. I included all roles within this part of the schedule and added both free time and self-care to every role's activities, so that there would be a mix of variety in what they did, as well as a bit of focus on sims keeping their needs met. I then added general working out for the dancers, so that they'd mix up their dancing with some general fitness. The chefs also kept their serving meals activity, and the staff kept their fixing objects and cleaning activities. This was so that while they'd have a bit of a break too, they also wouldn't stop performing necessary tasks. Finally, at 11 PM, the last time block starts with the headline activity being sleep. I included dance instructors, dance learners, chefs, and the staff roles within this activity block. And as the headline activity was to sleep, and I simply wanted sims to sleep, I cleared all of their usual activities and simply added the activity to sleep into them. A final thing to note is that before going on a getaway, you'll also need to ensure that you have at least one household sim that partakes in each of the activity blocks. Once your getaway is all set up, I'd highly suggest saving your new getaway as a preset, as this will save it as one of your drop-down getaway options so that you can use it again in the future. Now, you'll likely want to tweak your getaway as it plays out if things aren't working out the way you planned. If you do this, then keep in mind that you'll want to continually save the changes you made so that your preset stays updated as well. Now let's move on to the third and final part of setting up a getaway, being adding rules to it. There are 14 rules to choose from, and a getaway can have up to 5 added to it. Importantly, the first 7 rules are a bit more general and can be applied to any getaway. They include things like making sims better at crafting objects and building skills, making sims needs decay faster, or even making it so that sims get angry at each other a lot easier. The final 7 rules are all elimination based, and you can only have one elimination based rule active on a getaway. Each of these will add a competitive criteria to your getaway, and the sims who perform the worst in this daily will be eliminated, usually at around 11 AM. Importantly, for elimination based rules, you'll have to choose whether lowest score or lowest progress is eliminated. For example, the survival of the fittest rule boots out the sim who performs the worst in the fitness skill daily. If you choose lowest score losers, then whoever's fitness skill is the lowest at each elimination checkpoint is eliminated. If you instead choose lowest progress losers, then it's all about how much a sim has improved their skills specifically during the getaway, and the sim who's made the least progress in the fitness skill overall at each elimination checkpoint will be booted from the competition. Also know that each rule needs to be assigned to various roles that exist within your getaway. So for example, with my dance camp, I added the grind set mindset to both the dance instructor and dance learner roles. This makes sims feel happier and perform better when building skills, and I felt like it would generally make the dance camp run a little bit smoother. Of course, getaways are great for storytelling. However, there's also another reason why you might want to send your sim on a getaway, and that's because it can lead to them earning a unique reward trait. There are 7 different reward traits that can be earned from going on a getaway, including Clever Rogue, Taste Refined, Rooted Wanderer, Growth Kindled, Artfully Enriched, Hobbyist, and Suave Speaker. To earn them, you'll have to engage with getaway activities, and the trait rewarded will depend on the getaway activities that your sim partook in. I'll be honest, it's a little bit random though. For example, I entered a romantic competition where I constantly flirted and made out with other sims, and then emerged with the taste refined trait because I'd also been eating food along the way. Now we need to talk about custom venues, which are essentially a community lot type that has heaps of flexibility. To turn a community lot into a custom venue, then in build mode simply change the lot type to be custom venue. But for a custom venue to function properly, you'll then need to configure a schedule preset. And in short, this means filling out roles and a schedule for a custom venue. Pretty much exactly how you would for a getaway. The roles and schedule will then determine how sims interact with the custom venue daily, bringing the lot to life in a unique way for whenever you decide to visit. While you can't assign sims to roles initially, while actively visiting with a sim, you'll then be able to head into build mode and assign your sim as well as other sims to roles of your choosing. And that's a look at how getaways and custom venues work in The Sims 4. I'm pretty sure it's the most involved system in the game, and it definitely takes a bit of getting your head around. I hope you found the video helpful and that you have an amazing day. See you later!